stop fraud or suppress the vote? In a presidential election year, that is the debate, and often it is a heated one over voter ID laws. In Pennsylvania, a judge offered a split decision, delaying the start of a tough new law while allowing poll workers to ask for photo ID, but not stopping voters if they don't have one. Joining me now are Jim Byrne, chairman of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, which opposes the law, and Ron Ruman, communications director for the Pennsylvania Department of State, which backs it. Good morning to both of you. This is a very interesting topic, getting a lot of attention. Ron, I want to start with you, though, first. Yesterday, the ACLU filed a motion with this same judge saying that the Show It campaign, which says photo IDs are required, is still being publicized, while making only a small disclaimer that you can vote without a photo ID. So what do you counter this messaging that a lot of folks are calling misleading?
In litigation, so I'm a little bit constrained on what I can say about that. However, since the judge ruled October 2nd, we have revamped our outreach campaign to follow the judge's ruling, which, as you said, Randy, will have poll workers asking voters for ID in this election. It will not be required to vote. If you don't have it, you can still vote by regular ballot, which happened in the primary as well. And the judge was very specific in his ruling that this education campaign should continue because right now that law is in effect for future elections. So what our campaign is saying now is that you will be asked to show the ID, but will not be required, and it gives information on a website and a toll-free phone number where you can get information if you need a free photo ID for voting in future elections.
But why not make it well known? I mean, this is false information, really, that is out there. I mean, why not change the messaging, letting people know that an ID is suggested but not required?
Well, we did. It's absolutely in all the ads. It says very clearly in the television, radio spots, the internet spots that photo ID will be asked for but not required to vote. That's the exact language. So it is very, very clearly stated in the spots that is what will happen.
But if you look at the messaging on that bus as we're looking at it, it's pretty hard to see that is the message because all you see there is the license and show it. But let me ask you, your efforts and similar ones are focused on voters.
I don't agree with that. It says if you have it this election, show it. So I think it's very clear. If you have it, you can show it. If you don't, you're not required to.
All right, let me continue here because your efforts and similar ones are focused on voters, but there have also been reports in other states of consultants hindering the vote by destroying the registration forms, for example. How are you addressing that problem?
Well, we've not had that here in Pennsylvania this election anyway, so we have a pretty good system here in Pennsylvania. Voter registrations are handled by 67 counties, and we have very good election workers in each of those counties. They're very diligent about what they do, and certainly we work with them if there are any problems that do arise. And in Pennsylvania, we've had our share of irregularities over the years of people trying to submit false registrations, that sort of thing, on both sides. We had a situation just several years ago where a Republican group was trying to scam college students in western Pennsylvania to changing their registration party or their address. And the story that was done in the newspaper concluded the only reason they were doing this is they were trying to get these students registered, and if they moved, as college students often do after they graduate, then they could have people vote for them. We've had Acorn people arrested and prosecuted for submitting false registrations here in Pennsylvania. So we've had that in the past. I'm not aware of anything in particular this year, though.
Let me bring in Jim. Pennsylvania began offering photo ID to registered voters in August for free. I know that you are concerned about voters being confused, but by some estimates, only 12,000 IDs have actually been issued. Can you say that the large groups of people are being disenfranchised by this effort?
Large groups would be disenfranchised, and Ron and the administration should be ashamed of themselves for the spin they continue to take with this piece of legislation. Only 12,000 were registered because of the poor job this administration did in reaching out to those who may be affected. I mean, we have to remember what started this piece of Orwellian legislation. The Republican governor, who used to be the Attorney General, told folks it was about voter fraud. Despite what Ron would have you believe, the governor, the former Attorney General, never prosecuted a case. The Republican leader of the House, Mike Turzai, admitted on the floor of a Republican Party meeting that this was about tilting the playing field in an uneven fashion to allow an inferior candidate, namely Governor Romney, to win Pennsylvania. Then they would have you believe that only 100,000 voters would have been affected. It's more like 750,000. And now that the judge put this injunction in place, it's very easy, Ron. All you have to do is say this: you are not required to have identification, photo identification, to vote in Pennsylvania. It's that simple, but they are continuing to move forward with this with this attempt, this campaign to disenfranchise and suppress and mislead Pennsylvania voters.
And what about the checks and balances? I mean, this is a very, very tight race, Jim.
It is a tight race, but you know, there has never been a case of voter fraud prosecuted. There's not this surge of folks marching to the polls with invalid identification, or there's not this massive conspiracy that this governor and this administration would have you believe. It's simply not the case. And when you look at the demographic of those in Pennsylvania who would be affected by this legislation, 85%, 90% of that demographic are Democratic voters or those who, through polling, strongly support this president. The Republican leader admitted what the purpose of the legislation was all about. So while we were pleased that the judge granted the injunction, Pennsylvanians do not have to show voter ID. We were disappointed that he left. Yeah.
Let me just jump in here, because very
Sure.
quickly, I just want to get Ron's reaction to Republican House Majority Leader, who was caught on tape saying this in June.
Voter ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania. Done.
So, Ron, how do you address those allegations? What do you say?
Representative Turzai does not speak for the Corbett administration, and to a point Jim made, as he well knows, voter fraud is prosecuted by district attorneys here in Pennsylvania, not the Attorney General. So he's right. Governor Corbett, when the Attorney General, would not have prosecuted that. It would have been the local district attorneys which do that. And I don't, you know, we believe that about 1% of eligible voters did not have photo ID when the law was passed. As far as who it would impact, I don't think anyone really knows that. I also point out that poll after poll here in Pennsylvania and across the country shows that large majorities of voters, including Democrats, support the concept of having a photo ID. What it does is it preserves the integrity of every vote by giving us something we don't have right now, which is a reliable, common-sense way to verify the identity of that voter when they come to the polls. Maybe there's a little voter fraud in Pennsylvania. Maybe there's a lot. No one really knows, and people who care about elections should support this common-sense step to make sure our elections are fair and decided by the legal voters.
I appreciate both of you weighing in. Ron Ruman and Jim Byrne, thank you very much for your